It is the third installment of the iconic KXK Hybrid Beetle series. It is KXK02 KreuzBaizan, with the kit of Slash, Longshot, Beam Sword, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Weapon Master, which adds a percentage of the leg's resist stats to base power when attacking. Now, as the third installment of the Hybrid Beetle series that also gave us Cross Messiah and Cross Messiah Z, definitely KreuzBaizan had a lot going for him and a lot of standards to live up to. But compared to Cross and Cross Z, KreuzBaizan took the Hybrid Beetle theme much more literally and to a whole new height, to the point it basically changes identities entirely while on the field. That being said, Slash is a melee-based skill that gets a damage bonus relative to how close the target is to you. That means that if you can barely outrun your target, or if you perhaps get unlucky and catch them on the backswing right as they turn around, you'll be dealing the highest amount of damage possible. However, the farther away the target is, the less effective this attack will be. In addition, this attack also auto-targets, if I recall correctly, whoever is closest to the line, so some discretion is advised if you do choose to use this skill conventionally. Longshot is basically kind of the antithesis and counterpart to Slash, whereas instead you get a damage bonus relative to how far away the target is from you. So if you catch someone at the very end of their turn or right as they're starting their heat phase, you're going to be dealing a lot of very painful damage. Whereas if you catch them up close and personal, probably will not be seeing anything beyond, say, the rates of like a basic rifle more or less. And then Beam Sword on the left arm is probably the most conventional and balanced form of combat that KreuzBaizan offers, and it is basically the melee variant of Hyperbeam. That means it gets a ×2 damage bonus at 30% charge, and a ×3 damage bonus at 100% charge. In addition, it also packs pierce damage, making this a very, very dangerous attack to make use of for pretty much anyone that needs close range melee nuking skills. Across the board, KreuzBaizan is actually very strong and rather well-rounded. I'm honestly very impressed by how well-rounded that he is. In the armor department, he is definitely sporting some very healthy numbers at 43, almost 4,400 HP for the head, about 3,500 per arm, and about 4,650 for the legs, means that KreuzBaizan can definitely tank a hit moderately well without anything breaking too quickly. Base power is very, very good too, at about base almost 1,500 for Slash, about 1,600 for Longshot, and just shy of 1,400 for Beam Sword at base numbers. So that means these will easily go up relative to damage conditions that are met. Leg stats are honestly very, very nice too, at about 908 for mobility, right off to a very good start, and that means that KreuzBaizan will have a very solid time moving across the field and keeping speed at his advantage. The evade of 977 isn't too shabby either, means he should have a moderately decent time dodging and grazing a lot of low success attacks or blind enemies. A melee resist of 1619 is very good though, as this means that KreuzBaizan can hold his own very well up close and personal, but a shoot resist of 732 will definitely be that pain point for him in particular, as this means that he will take a particularly noticeable amount of punish damage from anyone that is incoming with a shooting skill. Something else to note with KreuzBaizan is the leg ability of Weapon Master actually is a very, very good fit for the kind of Hybrid Beetle design that KreuzBaizan is going for, as it adds a percentage of his resist stats when using particular skills. That means if he's using Slash or Beam Sword, he will take a chunk of his melee resist for extra damage, or for Longshot, he'll use a chunk of his shoot resist. Now, much akin, as mentioned, when he basically changes identities, KreuzBaizan is also capable of meta change, and is the second model in the KXK line series to do so. In this form, as mentioned, it basically, again, will change its identity entirely from a rather melee-dominant design based solely off of KreuzBaizan, and now instead shift his design to be inspired by Kabuto Benimaru instead. In this form, he changes his kit out entirely for a very moderately shooting-based kit, with a kit of Meteor, Hyperbeam, Giga Gatling, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Gunman, which passively boosts the heat stat of all equipped shooting skills just for having the skill activated. Now, in comparison to his base form, which has 2 melee skills and 1 shooting skill, the meta change form is dominantly shooting based, and boy is it packing a wallop with this kit. Meteor is a gunpowder based skill that, when once used, will actually set the target on fire and apply a DOT to them, very similar to fire or melt based ailments. The difference is it is a gunpowder based skill, which will fit it in the same family as missile and napalm. Hyperbeam is basically the shooting variant of Beam Sword, so same damage bonuses at a ×2 at 30% charge and a ×3 at 100% charge, with packing a very nice and generous base power at about 2150 there. And Giga Gatling is a conventional shooting skill that packs a ×1.5 damage bonus as long as his legs are intact, but given that it's a meta change, that's basically guaranteed, but also packs defense ignore on top of that. So even as a scattered AoE kind of attack that it is, it does mean that this attack will be absolutely painful no matter how you choose to use it. Of course, at the cost that you cannot dodge or defend until you finish your cooldown. Now, in the armor department, really don't need to touch on that because it's basically all of his armor, all of his parts HP put together at a very generous number of just over 16 grand. His leg stats actually stay exactly the same though, with the difference being that the melee resist and shoot resist change sides. So in this form, he's much more resistant to shooting attacks while in this form, but more susceptible to melee based ones. Now, it is also worth noting that in this form, 2 of his attacks require charge to use, but if you can pair him off with a hunter or sniper nature metal, this can be very easily skirted. That being said, as a pure set score, I very, very easily have to rate KreuzBaizan a very solid 9 out of 10. He has very good synergy with what he offers, very, very strong base power, and very good parts, and a very wide array of skills you really can't ever go wrong with using, and very good stats in addition to that. The couple of particular drawbacks I do see with KreuzBaizan, however, is the fact that because he's specializing in shooting and in melee, it does kind of force you to decide how you want to use him, and you can't very easily switch forms without having to really change what kind of metal you use on him, deciding if you want to use him for melee or if you want to use him for shooting. Because if you split the metal at a 75 split, you probably will be losing a pretty fair chunk of power that you could get by focusing on one or the other. In addition, as mentioned, 2 of his drives while in shooting form require metaphors to use, which means he requires a charge right from start if you want to make use of him off the bat. As mixed parts, I have to rate him just a little bit lower at an 8 out of 10. That given that even though his parts of Slash, Longshot, and Beam Sword are still very good and his legs are also exceptionally very useful, you are kind of missing out on a lot of the high-end damage that he could be dealing between Meteor, Hyperbeam, and Giga Gatling. Even if the Gunman leg ability doesn't really benefit him too much in this in comparison to Weapon Master, it is still something again that you will be missing out on if you choose to mix him up choose to use him as mixed parts. But all the same, a very solid model and very dangerous, one as to be expected of a Hybrid Beetle type following Cross Messiah and Cross Z.